On the afternoon of November 24, 1971, a nondescript man buy a one-way ticket on Flight 305 to Seattle, not just to travel, to hijack the plane. Thus began one of the great unsolved mysteries in FBI history. Hello, amazing viewers. It's me, Femina again. Do subscribe the channel for more cold cases and unsolved mysteries in the history. On Thanksgiving Eve, around 2 p.m. on November 24, a middle aged man calling himself Dan Cooper entered Portland International Airport and purchased a one way ticket to Seattle Tacoma Airport on Flight 305, a 30-minute trip for $20. He was assigned an aisle seat 18C for a 2:45 p.m. flight. The plane carried 36 passengers that day, not including the pilot, the first officer, the flight engineer, and 2 flight attendants. Cooper boarded the aircraft, a Boeing 727-100, and ordered a drink, bourbon and soda. Flight 305, approximately one-third full, departed Portland at 2:50 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. A short time after 3 p.m., he handed a note to Florence Schaffner, the flight attendant situated nearest to him. Schaffner, assuming the note contained a lonely businessman's phone number, dropped it unopened into her purse. Cooper leaned toward her and whispered, "Miss, you had better look at that note. I have a bomb." Schaffner then read the note and hurried to the cockpit to show the pilot. After he read the note, the pilot William A. Scott immediately contacted Seattle Air Traffic Control, which informed Seattle Police and FBI. The FBI placed an urgent call to the airline's president, Donald Nairobi, who said they should comply with Cooper's demands. Cooper instructed the flight attendant to return the note. Schaffner recalled that the handwritten ink note demanded $200,000 in cash, 2 sets of parachutes, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the aircraft upon arrival. Cooper wanted these items delivered on arrival at Seattle Tacoma Airport and claimed that if they didn't comply with these demands, he would blow up the plane. When Schaffner returned, he opened his suitcase wide enough for her to get a glimpse of wires and 2 cylinders, potentially dynamite sticks. He then directed her to stay in the air until the money and parachutes were ready. After receiving the message, the pilot announced over the intercom that the jet would circle before landing due to a mechanical problem. Most of the passengers were unaware of the hijacking. Schaffner described Cooper as calm, polite, and well spoken. Mucklow told investigators that he was not nervous, he was thoughtful and calm all the time. Cooper was very precise about his demands for money. He wanted the $200,000 in $20 bills, which would weigh around 21 pounds. He even specified that he wanted bills with serial numbers that were random, not sequential. FBI agents assembled the ransom money, most with serial numbers beginning with the letter L, and made a microfilm photograph of each of them. Cooper rejected the military issue parachutes offered by McCord AFB personnel, instead demanding civilian parachutes with manually operated ripcords. Seattle police obtained them from a local skydiving school. At 5:24 p.m. PST, Cooper was informed that his demands had been met, and at 5:39 p.m., the aircraft landed at Seattle Tacoma Airport. Cooper instructed Scott to taxi the jet to an isolated, brightly lit section of the apron and close all window shades in the cabin to deter police snippers. Northwest Orient Seattle operations manager Ali approached the aircraft in street clothes and delivered the cash-filled knapsack and parachutes to Mucklow via the aft stairs. Once the delivery was completed, Cooper allowed all passengers and the flight attendant Schaffner to leave the plane. An FAA official requested a face-to-face meeting with Cooper about the aircraft, which was denied. The refueling process was delayed because of a vapor lock in the fuel tanker truck's pumping mechanism. A second truck was brought in to complete refueling. During refueling, Cooper outlined his flight plan to the cockpit crew. A southeast course toward Mexico City at the minimum airspeed possible without stalling the aircraft, approximately 100 knots at a maximum 10,000 foot altitude. He further specified that the landing gear remain deployed in the takeoff or landing position, the wing flaps be lowered 15 degrees, and the cabin remain unpressurized. Co-pilot Ratajczak informed Cooper that a second refueling would be necessary before entering Mexico. Cooper and the crew discussed options and agreed on Reno, Nevada as a refueling stop. Cooper further directed that the aircraft take off with the rear exit door open and its staircase extended. Cooper had chosen this flight not only for location, but because of the type of jet that was used. He knew a lot about the Boeing 727-100. The jet was lightweight and would have no problem flying at such a slow speed through the dense air at 10,000 feet. After all of the flight details were figured out, the plane took off at 7:46 pm. Two F-106 fighter aircraft from McCord Air Force Base followed behind the airliner, one above it and one below, out of Cooper's view. After takeoff, Cooper ordered the flight attendant and the rest of the crew to stay in the cockpit. There was no peephole in the cockpit door or remote cameras installed at the time, so the crew had no idea what Cooper was doing. At 8 pm, a red light gave warning that the aft air stair apparatus had been activated. Scott offered assistance via the aircraft's intercom system, which Cooper refused. This was the last communication the crew had with him. The crew soon noticed a subjective change of air pressure, indicating that the aft door was open. At approximately 8:13 pm, the aircraft's tail section sustained a sudden upward movement. Scott noted the spot where the dip took place, 25 miles north of Portland near Lewis River. The crew assumed that the aft stairs had been lowered and that Cooper had jumped. At approximately 10:15 pm, Scott and Ratajczak landed the 727 with the aft air stairs still opened at Reno Airport. Scott spoke over the intercom and after receiving no response, he opened the cockpit door. The cabin was empty. Cooper, along with the money and all of his belongings, was gone. The only item left was the second parachute. During the hijacking, Cooper was wearing black JCPenney tie which he removed before jumping. No one ever heard from Cooper again. F-106 fighter jets following the aircraft, built to go at high speeds up to 1,500 miles per hour, proved to be useless at lower speeds. All subsequent investigations failed to prove whether or not he survived his fateful jump. Charges for air piracy were filed in 1976 and still stand today. On February 10, 1980, an 8-year-old boy found bundles of $20 bills with serial numbers matching the ones from the Cooper stash in the Columbia River, which triggered renewed interest but ultimately only deepened the mystery. On July 8, 2016, the FBI announced that it was suspending active investigation of the Cooper case. And so, despite 45 years worth of tips and theories, the fate and real name of America's most famous hijacker remains a mystery. To visualize the entire hijacking story, do watch the movie The Mystery of D.B. Cooper, released in 2020. See you in another video. Bye bye.